Welcome to the Winning in Business podcast. I'm your host, Kelly Rissy, and I love talking to business professionals, leaders, and entrepreneurs who are winning in business. Are you ready to reach your next level of success? If so, join us on the Winning in Business podcast as I interview entrepreneurs, business professionals, and leaders who share how they've risen to success. Before we begin, go ahead, hit subscribe and the notification button so you'll be notified each time a new episode is released. Plug in and settle in. You're about to be inspired to rise up to your next level of success. Welcome to another episode of Winning in Business. I'm your host, Kelly Rissy, and today I have the pleasure of interviewing Taylor Schreck. Taylor has held a variety of leadership roles in HR and client success and currently leads talent acquisition efforts for all of the revenue teams within her organization. She's a master practitioner and trainer of Neuro-Linguistics programming, and she is one of my friends. So Taylor, thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yes, I know that you are a superstar in your industry and you are young and vibrant, and personally I love knowing you because it helps me stay young and vibrant. So let's start off. Why don't you tell everybody, how did you get into doing what you do? Because I know what you're doing now is kind of new. So just share your path into success.
Sure. So I graduated college with a business degree with an emphasis in marketing. Took a detour right out of college into HR, which I never really planned to do. And I learned a variety of roles and specialties within HR. I had quick success in my HR career. I was promoted several times and got to learn a lot of different specialties, like I mentioned, through various rotations. After quite a few years, I wanted to dabble in the entrepreneurial space. And so I did that through becoming a financial advisor. I learned fairly quickly that that role wasn't for me. I didn't have the passion that, I really look for in a career and the way that I'm making a difference. And so that led me to my current employer, Biz Library, where I have spent the past little over 3 years in client success. I was promoted to director of client success. So I led a team of 6 client success managers overseeing $8 million in client accounts. And then just recently was promoted again into a role where I feel like I can contribute in a larger way, leading the talent acquisition efforts for all of our revenue roles. So I'm recruiting and placing top talent in our industry into sales, client success, implementation, sales development roles within our organization.
With your background, and I heard that marketing was not your thing in there. What do you feel like for you? I know your success. What do you feel like are your big ahas, whether it be skills, qualities, mindset? Like what has led you truly on a path of success right out of the gate from college up until where you are now? What do you attribute your success to?
Sure. So I think there's, in the variety of experiences that I've had, there's been a few things that I've really focused on, I think, that I can contribute to my success. One, I focus on what I can influence and control. So, there's a lot of contributing factors to different environments. For the majority of my career, I have been in the HR space, in the HR industry. The training company, the online training company that I work for now, we're still within that HR space. Talent markets have shifted and evolved over the years. And so, with the pandemic and all of these really unforeseen factors, I focus on what I can influence and what I can control. And a lot of the times that rolls into the communication that I get to have, whether it's with my team, with my clients, in this case with candidates. I believe that strong communication is the most valuable skill and tool that you can have, and that listening is really the most important part of communication. And so those are skills that I'm always kind of fine tuning and learning more about and continuously growing.
Yeah, I love what you said in the beginning, just focusing on what you can influence and can control. because there are a whole lot of things that are out of our control. And when we continue to put focus on that, we know that it really doesn't do us any good to spend time doing that. And it can be more stressful when we're focusing on what we have no control over, right? Than the things that we do have control over. I know for me, one of the things I know I have control over is me, right? I don't have control over much else, but I do have control over me. Where do you feel like that comes into play for you most in your life?
Yeah. So, I mean, I, have really put focus and value through working with a coach named Kelly and some other relationships that I have. I've really put focus on putting me first, my health, my mindset, setting really appropriate boundaries. I'm a recovering workaholic. And so, making sure that I have really strong boundaries to fuel the longevity, I think has been really important to me. And that is, like you said, a major way that I can control what I can influence. And, knowing that when I show up to a client interaction, or when I show up to a meeting, or when I show up to a training, or whatever it may be, I'm my best self, typically yields better results. And so taking care of me first so that I can, really have that longevity that I'm looking for has led to really strong professional results too.
Yeah, I think that's so important, especially as women. And I'm going to talk about just generic women right now in general, especially those though that have families, and then they end up not taking, like, everything goes towards the kids, and then they lose themselves and they forget to take care of themselves. And so I love how you are keeping that in the forefront of your mind, is to make sure that you are the priority in your life, because you truly do know that it impacts everything else in a greater way when you take care of yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. Communication. So for you, I know you talked about listening. What do you feel like in communication? Like, you're leading teams. So can you expand on that a little bit more, of just the communication, the listening, the talking, like what's some advice you have just in being a good communicator?
Sure. So I think it's really important to be able to communicate with people in all facets. And the best way that you can do that is really listening and what is important to them. And so that's something that I really focus on, whether I'm listening to an administrator of one of my client partnerships or an executive. I adjust and flow my communication style based on what is important to them. I do the same thing with candidates as I'm sourcing them for positions, within our organization. I want to hear first and foremost what's important to them, because if I don't understand that, how am I really going to place them with a role that will be fulfilling for them long term? I do that with my friends and my family. I really focus on making sure that our communication is effective. And the only way that I can do that is truly listening and what are the things that they express that are important to them, or the style of communication that they prefer. I think it takes skill to do that. And so for years and years, I've really valued professional development and personal development. And so I've been a part of personal development programs. And then the company that I work for is an online training and development company. And so we have, a ton of resources at our fingertips to help us continuously brush up and improve those skills to help us have stronger conversations and communication.
Yeah. And I know for me, one of the biggest things about listening is and this skill I feel like really does need to be developed, is that listening to hear instead of listening to respond, right? Of really listening to hear everything the person is saying. And then I'm sure you also take into consideration different communication styles as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, through my training, I've come to understand that people process information differently. And so I'm really aware of, based on what I've learned, how someone processes information, and how can I tailor the communication to, really be effective. I think that's something that I've learned too, is, as the communicator, it's our responsibility to make sure that our message gets across, and we get to do whatever makes that happen. So we're the ones that get to be flexible. We're the ones that get to alter our message. A lot of the times in leadership, that's really important. I've heard managers and leaders over the years say, like, oh, my team's just not getting it, or, they're not doing what they're supposed to do. That's a really great opportunity to pause and reflect on how are you communicating the message, and are you communicating a message that they can truly grasp, understand, and apply?
Yes, because we end up speaking how we want to speak instead of speaking into the people that are listening to us and how they need to hear it. And that is definitely a learned skill with some practice behind it.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, I think our society these days, we've become a consumer society, right? We're consuming information all day, every day. We're consuming it on social media. We're consuming it through, podcasts, through YouTube. We're just constantly consuming information, and being really cognizant and aware of the information that you are consuming. And, how can you use that to fuel what you're trying to get across? We learn there's so much information at our fingertips these days. Are we being cognizant of what we're consuming and how we can use that to make us better professionally, personally, all of the above?
Ooh, okay. So from there, let's talk about growth mindset, because I know that is so important to you. And that is something that you always carry with you, is making sure that you have this growth mindset. So share more about that, of how having a growth mindset has contributed to your success.
Yeah. So I think naturally I came out of the womb with a growth mindset. My mom has a really strong growth mindset. She's always been learning and developing and part of organizations that help her grow. And so I really, from an early age, started growing, finding ways that I can grow and challenge my mindset and expand and evolve in all of the words. And, over the past few years, I would say like 5 or so years, I've really been intentional about how I'm growing my mindset. I've joined, as you mentioned in my introduction, I've joined a program, Neuro-Linguistic programming, here locally in St. Louis, that has really expanded my mindset in the way that I, not only support and learn and grow myself, and also how I help others do that. Coaching, I've always had some sort of a coaching relationship, professionally, personally. I look for mentors. I also offer to be a mentor. And so I think a really strong part of being a growth mindset is also helping others develop their growth mindset. And so, I'm always looking for ways to expand my knowledge and learn new skills and learn new perspectives. I think that is what helps us grow in all facets. And then I think another piece is, paying it forward and making sure that you're helping others develop their growth mindset and serving as that mentor or leader or coach that helps us grow as a group.
What do you feel like is a stressor or a challenge for you as you continue to press on? And I know you are so driven. And I like to say that we all have challenges. So that's why I like to bring them up, right? No matter how successful we are, we all end up having challenges. So what's a challenge or stressor that you see for yourself?
Yeah, great question. And I agree with you. There's always challenges. One of my, I would say most prominent or most consistent challenges is being able to rest, especially in a professional environment. In the past, if I wasn't working on something, what I consider major, I felt unproductive. I had a lot of value tied to my professional success. And what I've been able to do is, really settle down and work closely with coaches and understand that, taking care of myself is really what creates that longevity and creates a better harmony when it comes to your personal life and your professional life. In the past, I've pushed all the way to burnout, and that can be really tough to come back from. So, developing a strong mindset, and it's so a strong mindset. I know that's become kind of a cliche term. It's so much more than like think happy thoughts and, say
right.
affirmations. It's so much more than that. And creating healthy boundaries has really allowed me to redefine the way that I work and the way that I show up to work. And, I've been able to put just as much value in what I'm doing in my personal life now with my professional life, and the harmony that those two have just led to, crazy forms of success, both financially, internally, all of the above.
Yeah, I used to actually think, that like rest equaled lazy instead of rest equals taking care of myself and
Yes.
recovering and preventing burnout. And I had to do a lot of mindset around that to understand that I can rest. And in turn, by resting, I will be even more productive, more lovely to be around. And my health stays better because I'm not pushing that burnout, right? I mean, the more we go, our body can only sustain that. Like we think we're fine until all of a sudden we have all these health problems that then we're trying to contribute to other things instead of going, oh, wait a minute. Like, have I been taking care of myself? Where's my stress level been and stuff like that? So I love that you brought that up. And that is definitely one of the common challenges that I hear from people on this podcast, right? Is finding that. I love how you call it work-life harmony. A lot of people call it work-life balance. And so that you can have a fulfilled life, in all areas of life. I think that helps us.
Yeah.
What are your goals moving forward?
Yeah. So I have a couple goals. One, more ambiguous goal is to really just continue to grow, stay in that growth mindset, continue to learn and evolve and expand the way that I show up both in personal and professional relationships. Through my leadership experience and my personal development work, I've really, really come to love coaching. And so a recent goal of mine is to launch a coaching program of my own. So stay tuned on what that looks like. And then one of my largest goals is to become a CEO. I believe that there's greatness within everyone, and I really aspire to be in leadership and coaching roles along the way where I can help people meet their greatness on a larger scale.
That's fabulous. And, I know in situations that we have been in and conversations that we have had that you will be and are already, you may not have it as a business yet, but you are a tremendous coach. And I think that also just from you leading teams at your places that you've been employed and being in that leadership role, like clearly you are someone that is meant to do that. So
thanks.
I want to go back and talk about that work-life harmony for you. What have you found to be the most successful for you? Yes, you're resting, but like if somebody is really struggling in that area, what can you tell them? How's it worked for you?
Yeah. So I'm trying to, a lot of the things have become so ingrained in the everyday life now. It's hard. It can be tough to kind of break it back down. I think one of the things that has really helped is creating boundaries around your schedule. Having work times and having non-work times or scheduling. So I live and breathe off of my calendar. Everything's on my calendar. And, what I had done in the past is I would really save everything personal until everything professionally had been taken care of. And what I realize now is that led to burnout. That led to things like you mentioned before. Like I physically felt unwell. My brain was full of brain fog. I was distracted, all of those things. And, what I do now is I work in things like I schedule going to the gym. It's scheduled as a part of my calendar. I schedule grocery shopping. I schedule things that are really going to fuel my body, both mentally and physically, that will then support me professionally. And so scheduling has become something that, I was already a really strong scheduler professionally, and giving my personal health and wellness a spot on the calendar. That's how I view it. Like it deserves its own spot on the calendar. It deserves that same scheduling and prioritization that the professional side does. I think that's been really, really, really important.
I remember now that you bring that up, and you, as you said, it is so ingrained in you right now that you just do it. But I remember when we first started working together, like that was not existent. You know what I mean? Like your work calendar was very strong, and your work calendar sometime was still going until 9 p.m. at night, like whatever, you know what I mean? Because as you said, you didn't have the personal thing scheduled. And And I do remember that we worked hard. You, right? You were the one that really worked hard and implemented in doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, and you helped me. You help me see that, your personal life can be, it should be, is, there is no can be, should be. It is just as important as you can't have the professional without the personal, and so I think that's really important. I think the other thing, the difference between a manager and a leader is someone who takes care of themselves. And I got to see that, what example working till midnight, what example was that showing my team, or my peers or my family, that wasn't really being the best leader that I could be. And so you can be really, really good at managing tasks. And if you're not good at leading your life and your wellness and the lead and showing up in a space of leadership for your team and for others, you're really just a manager. And to me, there's a big difference between a manager and a leader.
That's fantastic. Oh my gosh, so good. So let's see, okay, before we go into that, let's talk about, hang on. So my favorite question to ask is, are there any accomplishments that you've been really proud of?
Yeah, I mean, a ton of accomplishments. Once I began prioritizing my overall health and mindset, my professional successes just came naturally. And it was like a snowball, like they started as a client success manager when I was managing our clients directly. They started from small sales wins, and then they just continued to grow and snowball. And so, since I really started prioritizing my health and mindset, I've been promoted twice. I grew my team from 2 to 6 people. I've almost tripled my income, and I've just met and exceeded sales targets consistently over the years. And so all of that I contribute to working with a strong coach and, really focusing on your overall health, wellness, and mindset.
Yeah. And you've made some huge health goals as well. You've accomplished some of that also within that. So I agree with you that it is that snowball effect, because once you get going, then it ends up affecting all areas of life.
Yep, exactly.
Yes, that is phenomenal. So, Taylor, I have a question for you. Where do you want people to reach out to you if they would like to connect with you?
Sure. I would love to connect with you on LinkedIn. So it's www.linkedin.com/in/Taylor A. Schreck.
And I will put that in the show notes so that everyone can connect with Taylor, because I will tell you that she is definitely someone that you want to know. She is wise beyond her years. She is so driven, and just being in her presence, you feel good. You feel happy, you feel uplifted, and you are truly just a joy to be around. I'm so glad I got to interview you today. Do you have any last minute parting words that you would like to share for the listeners?
Sure. So I've known Kelly for years in a variety of capacities. Over the past few years, our personal life and professional lives have kind of overlapped. And so I've worked with Kelly one-on-one as she's my coach, and you would be in the best hands to be with Kelly. All of that growth and things that I've mentioned today, related to my mindset and my health and setting those boundaries and really making the personal and the professional harmonize, I attribute a lot of that to her. And so you are in great hands if you're already working with her. I'm sure you already know that. And for, somebody considering a strong professional, considering, how do you get a grasp on everything that's taking place, and how do you really do it all well, Kelly is who you should work with.
Oh my gosh, sure. Listeners, I did not pay her to say that. And I thank you very much for saying that. I'm just going to brag on this for a minute. I was recently just at a luncheon, and I ended up, for an organization that I run a chapter for, I ended up receiving Woman of the Year. And the thing that was interesting is when the woman that presented me, she said she was talking about me, and she said she took this chapter from mess to success.
Yes.
I feel like that is the biggest thing when people are running around being like, I'm a hot mess right now, right? And everything just seems to be in chaos. There's always going to be stress. And I think what you've realized, Taylor, for yourself also is how to respond appropriately to that, right? We end up in reactive mode instead of like how we really can respond to it and keep ourselves well and healthy and sane while the chaos is going around us. And I think that is one of the biggest things for me that I love helping people do, is to be able to, there's going to be stress around you, and you can also handle it and move through it with more of a sense of peace. And I see that is also one of the beautiful things that I see about you, because you do always seem to be so much calmer than a lot of people.
And then I used to be. I know that my friends and family would attest to that too. Yeah. I was not a calm person. And, when you're running on fumes, it's hard to be a calm person. And, there's adrenaline associated with stress, right? And so, piggybacking on what you just mentioned, save that adrenaline for good things,
Yes.
Save that adrenaline to pursue new clients, or save that adrenaline to, win a sales deal, or whatever industry you have. Like that's, I think a great thing that I took away from working with you is stress can really be supportive in the right capacity.
Yes.
And when you don't have the skills and the knowledge to understand when is right, it really can drain you. And so stress exists, adrenaline exists, and those things can really drive the good things.
Yeah. Yeah. Excellent. Well, it was wonderful having you on today. And I will put your, as I said, connecting with you on LinkedIn. And we are excited to see where you possibly end up coaching and who you are coaching and what, I have my ideas of my own for you, but really it's your we'll see where it ends up. But I am excited to see the future for you. And thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
And listeners, thanks for tuning into this episode of Winning in Business with my guest, Taylor Schreck. And we will see you next week. Have a great one. Thank you for being a part of the Winning in Business podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode and want to rise up to your next level of success, but are worried about increased stress, time for work and yourself and your family, not to mention being exhausted, I'd like to invite you to a complimentary strategy call where I'll show you how you can do it all. I'll help you reclaim time, keep your sanity, handle the chaos with ease, and move to the next level of success that you deserve and desire. I hope you found value in listening today. Please always leave your comments, feedback, or questions. We check them all. I want you to continue winning in business and reach your next level of success. See you next time.